All right, guys. So on the previous video, 3 macromolecules. This will be 4 macromolecules, but we left off talking about steroids. So a steroid is a lipid composed of 4 carbon rings. You can see that down here in the diagram. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are carbon rings. Every one of them has that feature. Common steroids include all of these that you see here. What makes them different from each other are the attached functional groups. We'll get back to that in just a second. The functional groups, hence the name functional, determine their function. So every steroid has a different functional group and therefore has a different function inside of a living organism like yourself. Most of the steroids are built from cholesterol. Steroids function in the body as cell signals or hormones. Due to their lipid nonpolar nature, they can penetrate the cell membrane and bind to intracellular receptors. So intra should make you think of inside the cell. Receptors, so there's a receptor inside the cell that will receive it. So these guys can just pass right through. They often act to regulate the expression of certain genes, meaning turn genes on or off. Cholesterol is an important component of the cell membrane. It helps with the cell membrane flexibility, so it makes the cell flexible so that it is, I guess, more survivable. You know, if it's flexible, it's less likely to take on damage. All right, so here's an example, an image I just put off the internet of a cell membrane. Notice the phospholipid bilayer here. Now, we have 2 different types of receptors. This is something we're going to talk more in-depthly about when we talk about cell communication. This is a very interesting thing to me because you get to talk about all kinds of things like cancer and all other interesting things. So we have an intracellular receptor, which is what we were just talking about. And then over here we have a transmembrane receptor. So this receptor is built into the cell membrane, but this one's found inside. So notice we have 2 different types of hormones here. All right. Notice the shape. So the shape is circular for this one and therefore would fit into this receptor. The shape of this one is triangular, which would fit into this one. So if this hormone interacts with this receptor, it would not fit and therefore would not initiate this cellular response. But the key thing that I wanted to point out, we're not going to get too in-depth with cell communication just yet, but this is a fat-soluble hormone. So it is a lipid-based hormone. And what it just said in the notes is that it does not need a passageway, a specific passageway to move through the cell. It just moves straight through. And the question is, why? Why does it move straight through? This is something that you need to understand. One more thing that you need to understand, right? But why does it move through like that without a receptor like this water-soluble hormone? You have to think about the structure of each phospholipid. The heads of each lipid, are they polar or nonpolar? Each head is polar. Therefore, they're going to attract other polar molecules. So if this hormone is water soluble, then you would assume that it is polar, and so it might actually stick to these phosphate heads and therefore would not be able to just cross through. But since these are fat-soluble hormones, they will not really interact with the heads. It will just pass straight through the non-polar region here, and then straight into the cell and bind to the receptor to initiate the cellular response. All right, so this is going to be a short video. I'm going to go ahead and finish up talking about lipids, and then the next video I'll get into proteins. I'm going to do one whole video just for proteins because there's a lot to talk about. So for the steroids, notice that notice the similarities between every different steroid. So 4 carbon rings, each one of these little joints. Hopefully you learned that in chemistry. Each little joint has a carbon there. But notice the major difference are here and here and right there. So those are the functional groups. And this is something that's going to be similar when we talk about amino acids. Most of the structure is the same, but just by changing these functional groups changes the entire function of the hormone. For example, cortisol, this first hormone here, you may know cortisol as the stress hormone. So whenever you get stressed out, maybe you're taking an FRQ in AP Biology, or you see the lesson plan, and there's 7,000 assignments for 1 week, your body may start to produce cortisol in response to stress. Or there are many different stimuli that might cause your body to produce cortisol. It is known as a stress hormone. It does many different things to your body. You know, one might be to ramp up your metabolism, to burn more calories. However, the unfortunate side effect to that is that it may cause damage in certain parts of your body. So that's why whenever you hear stress is bad for you, cortisol may be involved with that. And then, of course, down here you have testosterone. Testosterone is the main male hormone that early on in the life of all males, the production of testosterone or the presence of testosterone guides the production of male parts and male characteristics. So just changing the functional groups has that much of an effect. Cortisol could not have the same effect as testosterone. All right, so that's all for this video.